Why yes, Dinoblade is a real game, and it's just so good. Now, to give some context, this all started when a former Call of Duty developer, Gene Nguyen, started uploading a bunch of animations to the internet. Animations about dinosaurs with swords, all of them equally high quality, and all of them equally fucking awesome. After a while, people began talking about how cool it would be to play a game like this. So he made one. Dinoblade is probably the weirdest Souls-like to exist, but as someone who has Elden Ring on their top 5 games of all time list, I'm glad it does. It's really fun. It's honestly refreshing to see a game be made simply under the idea of it'd be cool. This is my kind of game. In fact, it's so my kind of game that I'd go as far as to call it fan service. And I don't mean in the ways of Jurassic World Dominion or that one. This game is made for people with hell yeah mindsets. This doesn't make any sense and would never happen, but it looks badass, so who cares? So with all that said, let's stop talking and just move on already. The first category we have is presentation, and okay, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but this game isn't actually fully released yet, with its release date set to July of this year, and the version I played for this video is merely a very, very early demo of the full game. So a lot of its features are still being worked on, and nowhere else is this better communicated than the visuals, which are overall pretty mixed. The texturing and modelings of the environments look okay at best and unpolished at worst. The lighting is overall pretty good, but there are times where it looks pretty flat, and the cutscenes do need a bit more time in the oven. Despite how cool they are, there is a lot of sliding and jankiness within them that I hope gets patched upon the game's release. However, the voice acting is actually not too bad.
Step forward if you wish to live.
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
There are also loads of really sudden loading screens that are meant to act as transitions, but ultimately end up taking away from the overall immersion. On the plus side, you do get to look at some nice-ass concept art. I also have some problems with the camera. In my opinion, I think it's placed too far back and isn't coded properly, and as a result, often clips through the ground and various walls. It's just very not great. However, the same can't be said for the dinosaurs themselves, who have to have some of the sickest animations of all time. They're all so flippy and fleshy and crazy and wild and stupid that it's just eye candy for me. Watching an over 9-ton carnivore perform the most batshit insane and over-the-top maneuvers just to initiate a basic fucking slash makes so much sense to me for some reason. I also wanted to test out the specs of my newly acquired device, so I turned up all the settings to the highest and got a sweet spot of around 70 to 90 frames per second. Or in other words, I was getting nothing but crispity smooth gameplay for the most part. Moving on from all that, let's talk story. And to put it bluntly, this part's going to be really short. Mainly because it's a demo and isn't very long. I think I was able to beat it in about 50 minutes, so there isn't much to talk about, but I'll go over as much as I can. You play as a Spinosaurus who's trying to escape from enemy dinosaurs, but ends up tripping and falling into a cave. Upon awakening, you're met with Dino Jesus, or Dino Satan, or whoever the f this is supposed to be. And after pledging your soul to him, attain a brand new form and a giant sword. And from then on, the story is get through enemies and fight bosses until you get to the final boss, kill her, and then the game just ends. Oh, and I guess you're also being stalked by some guy.
So you've finally taken form.
Dude, I'm watching the stream while you try not to laugh, bro. That's disrespectful as shit, bro. The fuck is wrong with you, bro?
And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. The story is just really bare bones, but keep in mind, this is only a demo, so it's pretty unfinished, and is meant to act as sort of an introduction to what's on the way, meaning that there's practically no limits to what they could add to the narrative. Maybe some lore pages to find, or NPCs to talk to, make the environments in a certain way that allows us to piece together what happened, have certain events and parts of the world explained through boss dialogue. I'm not saying that I need these in the game, but I do think adding to the lore and world is somewhat necessary. Now getting into what you're probably waiting for, the gameplay, and goddamn, this game is fun. Dinoblade is what we in the Soulsborne community like to call a Souls-like, taking inspiration and mechanics from various From Software titles, Dark Souls rolling, Bloodborne healing, and even the parrying from Sekiro, The Wolf Inside Me. And all these come together to create a pretty well-rounded experience. However, this also means that the game is very linear, with most of the level design being rocky corridors with little variety, and the occasional waterfall, and it gets boring to look at. But what isn't boring is the combat system, feeling very fluid and snappy. You have your basic light and heavy attack combos, along with a jump attack and a charge projectile you can shoot out at the cost of some mana. The combat requires a lot of focus, and choosing to just rush in will often result in you being overwhelmed. Being wary and prioritizing certain enemies is the best way to ensure your survival. So essentially, if you enjoy From Software games, you will definitely enjoy this one. The biggest issue I have with it is that sometimes the combo string would just stop at certain intervals, even though I was clearly still pushing the button. But even so, it's a pretty minor issue that'll probably be patched out. So yeah, moving on. The enemy variety isn't huge, but it's diverse enough to not feel repetitive. Quick and agile raptors with katanas, ranged trident-wielding suchomimuses, heavy and lumbering giganotosauruses that try to smush you with a hammer, and so on. Upon killing them, you gain SP, which is used to upgrade your stats, you know, like health, damage, and all that. But upon killing bosses, you gain boss SP, which is how you progress the skill tree and purchase different abilities. Oh, and speaking of bosses, the ones in this game are surprisingly well designed. These bosses are the perfect middle ground for what a boss should be. Not too hard to be infuriating, but not too easy to be mindless. So even the easiest boss in the game still requires strategic thought and implementation in order to overcome. There are 3 bosses in total: a Carnotaurus with a scythe named Kita, an axe-wielding dinosaur named Axe, wow, real creative naming there, and a giant T-Rex named Kasei, with each of them serving a different purpose. Kita is meant to be your first real challenge, and to introduce you to various mechanics, like the stun bar or the clashing QTE. Axe has more health and is used to showcase what unblockable attacks look like, and Kasei is more of a final test kind of boss. Being the most difficult fight in the game, you need to use everything you've learned before in order to best her, and afterwards you get a cool new sword and the game ends. So yeah, all these bosses are really good, each of them designed in different ways, and each of them fresh and exciting. And plus, they just look really cool. I mean, come on, the final boss uses another dinosaur as a weapon. It really doesn't get much cooler than that. Going back to the skill tree, there are a bunch of abilities you can acquire. There's one that lets out a roar and freezes enemies in place for a short time. Another one shoots you forward and deals high damage. And the ability titled Survival Instinct increases your damage and parry window when health is below 15%. I can't really comment on the other ones because I never got them and the game didn't really give me enough room to. But despite being kinda unfinished in some areas, the gameplay overall is really enjoyable and really fun. In conclusion, Dinoblade is off to a pretty promising and ambitious start, and with some fine-tuning, I can see it eventually become something genuinely great. The combat is fast and fun, the enemy and boss designs are exciting, and as bare bones as it is, the story, admittedly, does have some intrigue to it. I'm honestly really interested to see where this game goes, and can't wait for it to fully release in July of this year. It's actually insane that I feel this way. Like, we're in a time where most games today either turn out to be massive letdowns, slop, or just straight up cancelled. So at this point, I should be expecting this game to do the same, but the fact that I don't is nothing short of a miracle. I'm excited for this game. I can't wait for it to come out. The only other game I feel a similar way towards is Subnautica 2, which is probably already out depending on when this video releases. Dinoblade has the potential to be something special, and I'm fully prepared to praise it for the masterpiece it will be. Or, you know, it could suck. That's an outcome I'm really treading.
I'll do it.